Hey, listeners, and welcome to the You Are Epic podcast. This is where we honor the people who've helped build not just our industry, but our communities. I'm Angela Hucker, and I am so glad that you're here. So, I'm taking the time to sit down with people who've been in construction for years, people who've been through the ups, the downs, and everything in between. You're going to hear real stories of resilience, growth, and moments that shaped who they are. This podcast is for those that want to learn more from people who've been walking this path for some time, and they're helping to lift up others and quietly making a difference along the way. It's also to show you that your journey matters and your voice matters. And in case you've forgotten, you are epic. Let's get into it. Okay, so we've got today with us Craig Gauvreau, who's a seasoned safety consultant and founder of Keep Safe Consulting Corporation, who's based in Alberta, Canada. So Craig's got extensive experience in the construction industry. He specializes in helping companies protect their workers by shifting the focus from merely lecturing about rules to fostering a genuine belief in safety. He emphasizes the importance of leadership presence on work sites, advocating that managers spend quality time with their teams to understand and address safety challenges effectively. Craig is also an active voice on LinkedIn, sharing insights on construction, safety, leadership, and management. So it's awesome to have you here, Craig. Thank you so much for joining us. What we'll do, we might just start with how did you get started in the industry? How long have you been in the industry? And what's your current role that you're doing at the moment as well?
Sure. I have a military background in the Canadian Army. I spent my last 4 summers as a mountaineering instructor in the Army. And so when I got out, I tried a few things that didn't pan out. I got called by a friend of mine who was working for a training company teaching high angle rescue and confined space entry and stuff. And I thought, well, I can do technical rope rescue off of towers and stuff. So that's kind of how I got into it. And then I went to work for a drilling company after a while, and they were looking for somebody who could go out to the drilling rigs and teach how to rescue a person out of the derrick. While I was working for them, I went to the University of Alberta, took my OH&S program from there. I worked there for a while, and then the company was going through a merger. So around 2007, I started my own consulting business. So I was almost 30 when I got out of the Army. I'm 61 now, so I've been, I guess, probably 27 years totally in the safety and oil and gas and construction. So when I got out, I was right around that time where I was starting to question some of the stuff we do in health and safety, and where you start thinking, does this actually work? You're not drinking the Kool-Aid, so to speak, anymore. I kind of went back to my roots in the Army as a leader. I was a sergeant in the Army, so I figure if you can lead men into combat, you can lead people on the construction site. And that's
Absolutely.
that's kind of my shtick on safety. It's about the frontline leader, and that's really where I focused to. When I started writing my book, you would be coaching a lot of safety people, and I thought, well, they need some help. So that's when I wrote my book. And I initially thought it would be like a safety book, but it wasn't. It was a leadership book,
Yeah,
and with a kind of a safety spin to it. So
yeah. Thanks for sharing that. That's incredible history that you've got and experience as well. So I can definitely see, like, with coming from a military background, how that would certainly apply to the construction industry and on drilling sites and those sorts of things in a safety perspective as well. Because, as you said, like the military is about leading your men, and safety is about, leading a workforce to be safer as well. And I'm just wondering what kind of things you've learnt from the military that you've been able to apply in that perspective as well.
I think the biggest one is influence. Like when there's an incident, for example, it gets you away from blaming the worker and figuring out what actually went wrong from a systems point of view. But also, in the Army, if the team wasn't working very well, they went to the first leader and then to the next leader and to the next leader. I saw a lot of value in that. And the downside, what we have right now, is there's some leadership courses for the frontline leader, but like all industries, we'll take the person who was the best pipe fitter or the best welder or tradesperson in their craft, and well, they're good, so we'll make them the supervisor. And maybe they don't want to be the supervisor, right?
Yeah.
And you just throw them into the role, and we don't really teach them. And one of the things that in the Army that was good was the leadership training was very structured. And
Mm,
it's kind of like what's the word? Like a paradox or something, because if you're disciplined, you actually got some freedom and flexibility. And so if you got structured training for leaders, it allows them to adapt and because when you're in the army, a lot of the stuff you're doing is, it's dynamic and you got to adjust. So the same would be out on a construction site. It's so fluid, right?
Mhm.
I started putting it together back when the Canadian Army still had soldiers in Afghanistan. In the 11 years that we had soldiers fighting in Afghanistan, we lost 158 soldiers. But in Alberta, for probably 15 years, I've done a couple posts on this on LinkedIn. The fatality rate has stayed the same. There's been 158 to 160 people a year for 15 years lose their lives on the job. So like the ex-soldier goes, well, 158 in combat, and the safety guy goes 160 people on the job. It's like something's broken.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's why I think we have a lot of work to do. You can take like an industry and look at some of those extreme statistics. And, these are people just going to work. So that's when I thought, well, we've done some good things in safety from the 1980s, really good improvements, but we're still hurting and killing a lot of people. Right.
yeah. It absolutely. And it's just, like no one goes to work to be killed on a work site, so
Yeah.
at all.
And there's different circumstance to each one of those, but the evidence is there. We have some work to do. I really think that's the frontline leader because, you can put as many systems as rules as you want. What's
Mm.
important to your supervisor is going to be important to you.
So what are you seeing in that space with the leadership? Because you touched on about influence and that structured training and, being able to teach people. What are you seeing in Canada that may be working, may not be working, may need some improvement? Have you got
Hmm.
any good news stories, or have you got some stories that's something that's it's like, hey, look, there's a good opportunity here to help make some improvements as well.
I think one of the things we're starting to see is there's a lot of talk about focusing on the people. The downside of that is there's not a lot of tools how to do that, but at least there's discussions now, and that's big time, right? Not just looking at the production at the end of the day, but how we got there. And so I think one of the really good things is there's some open discussion now about, taking care of the people and their mental health or well-being, right?
Mm.
There's some terms I think we can probably work around to get rid of that stigma because a lot of people are uncomfortable talking about it, especially if it gets to the one-on-one, but it's getting to that barrier where it's okay to have a bit of a personal relationship with some of the people you work for. You don't have to be drinking buddies, but if you know a little bit about them. And it's getting people to walk the talk too. Like I think some of us in the safety field, we have to have the courage to not be belligerent, but challenge the status quo a little bit. If the organization we're working for isn't kind of walking the talk, right? This is a funny story. But before I started contracting on my own, the company I was working for, it was a drilling company, and the owner of the company started as a roughneck. He was a farmer, and he just went to work, quit school, and by the time I knew him, he was in his 60s. And my boss at the time was fantastic, but their safety program was struggling, and it was largely because they had a novice person in the role, and he just got to start somewhere, but he had no guidance. They had 9 lost time injuries in 1 year. It's not a big company, right? Now, to be fair, 6 of those lost time injuries were just lost time because they weren't managed properly. The workers didn't get the resources and stuff. But we had this one field superintendent who was a bit of a what do you call him? Like a social climber. Like he'd say the right things when the bosses were there, and then when the bosses were gone, he'd behave a different way.
Yeah.
And the president of the company saying, we got to talk. I had been talking to him about a people approach to safety instead of the rules. We have excellent practices. We don't need more rules. Don't need more bureaucratic steps. We just got to get the right people in the right seats and take care of them. So he was talking about people being our number one asset in this meeting. And this field superintendent goes, yeah, yeah, like we've got to take care of the boys. They're the number one asset. I heard someone say, really? And it was me. It was my outside voice. They said, you got something to say, Craig? And I said, well, I guess I'm in for a penny, in for a pound. I said, do you really believe that they're our number one asset? He goes, well, yeah, yeah. I said, we had 9 lost time injuries last year where people were hurt bad enough they couldn't go to work the next day. What are their names?
Mm.
Then he had some choice words for me and stormed out of the meeting. But you have to be able to stand up and call a spade a little bit, and
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, and I think You can't always do that, but I think you have to be prepared to challenge what's working and do more of what is. Because there's a lot of stuff going on in the safety field right now. Like there's safety differently and safety two and a bunch of other good stuff, but we don't have to throw out the old stuff either. We have to
Mm,
figure out where the company is. And like when I was working for that drilling company, they went from a struggling company to a mediocre safety program. And I've been talking a little bit about LinkedIn lately about like, is good good enough? Like,
yeah.
you're trying to go for excellent, but you got to take care of this stuff, right? And so I really like is we're able to have really open and frank conversations now that we couldn't have years ago, right?
Mm,
And
mm,
the safety field is getting more and more recognition as a profession, so that's good. Like there was no license to enter before. Like when I started in safety, we had HSE, right? H was it was hygiene, industrial hygiene, and you got to
oh,
go to you got to go
wow.
to school and get an industrial hygiene like what do you call it, a degree in Master of Science or something for that,
Oh,
right?
wow. Okay.
And the E part was environment.
Mm,
Well, environmental, you went to university and studied environmental sciences. But
mm,
for safety, like when I started in safety, when I look back, usually it was somebody on retirement, coasting, or it was a guy who was injured. There was no structure,
yeah.
and now there's certificate, diploma, and degree
Yeah.
programs,
Yeah.
and there's professional designations. But for only until recently, there was no real license to enter. Probably in my 27 years, I think that's the biggest thing that I've seen. And of course, with that, the profession is hurting for people, just like
Yeah.
trades, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot
So
of
we're
legal
like,
responsibility with being in safety as well, because you've got to understand the legislation. You've got to understand, different things to know how to be able to handle cases and incidents and
yep,
reporting and investigations and dealing with the regulators and things as well. So,
yeah. So you got the regulators and making sure the company you're representing meets those regulations.
yeah.
Then you got the workers over here, and you
Mm,
got to be able to speak to management, right?
mm,
I think probably two big areas where we need to improve training and communication and safety is claims management for injuries and contractor management and the business case, like talking business to management. Like there's good data out there. You just got to go find it on like how much you're losing for like WCB claims when you don't need to be or insurance costs. And I see a lot of incident reports that come in when I'm working with people and there's no dollar value in the loss part. Like how much is this incident costing? And
exactly.
they like because there's downtime and that it's easy to calculate. You just got to put it on there. And that's something that you can't be afraid to talk about that with management. Like this is going to cost us this much money. What's the profit margin of the corporation? Like how long are they going to have to work for free to pay for it? Especially if it's a big accident,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Or a
Right.
fatality where they've then got to
Oh,
pay,
yeah,
like compensation for a workplace death as well. And then that affects their insurance premiums and the
yeah,
flow on effect with that. So,
yeah.
and then there's the
And
reputational damage as well.
oh yeah, yeah.
Mm,
That's something that I think management's probably struggling with is on the reputation side because with things like social media and whatnot, a lot of workers, their outlook towards work is different than say mine. It's not wrong, it's just different, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So with that, because that's a really key part, what you've touched on about like how to handle like more education and training on claims management and contractor management, and then about dealing with your own internal company management as well. What sort
Mhm.
of recommendations have you got in that regards with your extensive experience and particularly with what you do now with your consulting as well?
There's a really good book. It's old now, but it still applies. It's from Bondguard. They're kind of a publishing company with industry here. And it's called Selling Safety to Your CEO, Making the Business Case for Safety. It's really good. Well, you have to have two things. You have to understand how it works, especially if you want to introduce an initiative like a hazard ID program or something. You have to be able to figure out how much is it going to cost? Is it going to add value? But also, I think one of the bigger things you could work on for people in the field is speaking the language for, like I say, an incident. My old boss, we had an accident on a rig. We didn't hurt anybody, like just sheer dumb luck that we didn't have like a fatality or two, but there was an equipment failure. And we do the investigation, we figure out what happened. The job was shut down. They had to replace the equipment. Like it was probably 2 or 3 weeks before they could get back running. And I asked my boss, I said, what's the profit margin for that? And he goes, well, what do you mean? Well, I want to figure out how long we're going to be working for free.
Yeah.
And he goes, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we figured it out, and we would have had to work the whole winter drilling season. That particular rig, I asked him, I said, do they have work for it when that well is done? That was a game changer for both of us because I didn't realize how significant it was. That reminds me, like if you can take some of those big global costs like WCB premiums and insurance stuff and drive it out towards like where it's local versus, oh, that's a company expense way back here.
Yeah.
Like my boss, like he was this wizard with Excel spreadsheets. And I said, we have about 30 remote work sites, and about 20% of them are causing most of the problems. WCB, for example, they get their premiums for, say, an industry sector. And then if your record is poor, well, then you're going to pay a surcharge. If it's good, you're going to get a discount. And
Yeah.
I said, can we do that in the company? And he goes, oh, yeah, we can figure that out.
Yeah.
And I had some really colorful conversations with the area managers for those regions. I said, these incidents happen on your watch, so it's impacting your business. And it
Mm.
was a game changer. Like we only had a small percentage of people that didn't get it, and they were cut loose, but
Mm.
it's all related. Well, it's like you say, reputational. So it's impacting your business on
Yeah.
that part of it. But
Yeah.
it's also, they're all measurable costs. So from there, you can go out and figure out what's not working,
Mm.
what's broken, and then you can go fix that because each work site's going to be different,
Yeah.
right? That was a big game changer for us. And even Randy, even my boss at the time, when we all, after the merger and kind of went our separate ways, he said, I didn't know we could do safety this way. I
Yeah.
thought, well, I'll take that as a big compliment because it was really cool. We were on an 8% surcharge, and in 18 months, we turned it to a 13% rebate. So
Wow.
in real dollars, it was just shy of $500,000 on a rebate.
Wow.
I don't care how big you are, that's a ton of money.
It is.
Like,
Yeah.
right. And
Yep.
so you can show how safety is going to work for you. That could be your training budget for the next year.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
So with what you do with your consulting,
Mhm.
you're working with companies to help them set up better safety systems? How do you get buy-in to be able to do that? Is it linking it back to the dollars to let them understand the financial benefit?
That's part of it. I'm usually doing a lot of site work, so I'll work for a company and they'll say have a big construction job, and so they've already got a safety program. I don't have to develop it. And I've been really lucky. I've been working mostly for the prime contractor, so the owner
Mm.
of the site.
Mm.
And so I've been out on the work site, so and basically implementing their program, but also implementing the contractor management side of
Mm.
safety. A lot of companies, they'll put an RFP out for a bid for a job. On the safety side of it, we'll do like contract evaluations, go through their safety program and see what's in it. Does it meet a certain standard? And then bring them out to the site and expect them to follow our rules instead of hiring them and let them follow their own program and their own.
Yeah.
And so pushing some of that accountability back to them. I do a ton of that, and then I work a lot with the supervisors on just hands-on coaching and leadership and stuff like that, and also facilitating like hazard assessments, and then I try to do a lot of groundwork with the workforce because when you do groundwork in like relationship building and getting trust, because then when there's an incident and you have to do a root
Mm.
cause investigation, you have a better chance of getting to the bottom of what went wrong.
Absolutely. So how do you get that with focusing on the workforce as well to be able to, obviously if there is an incident, to be able to help with that
Mhm.
investigation? What kind of steps do you take to be able to do that that might be beneficial for someone else who may be new to safety or stepping into safety to help set them up with how they can approach things?
I try to find out what they know and see if they can leverage it because, like, what they did before they got into safety, if they're new to it, or kind of see if they have an idea of critical thinking, I guess would be the way to look at it, and get them to start asking good questions. Build some trust, like find out what they're doing, a little bit about the people, that kind of thing.
Mm.
Uh, they already know the safety program, they know the content in there, but don't be afraid to find out. Spend some time talking to the workforce, talk to people, and see who's impacting on others. And make sure they're set up to succeed, right? They might be trying to get some work done, but don't have all the tools they need. So I think it's kind of like an approach. Like I try to tell them, like if you have people not wearing safety glasses in 2025, that's not a safety issue. That's a supervision issue,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And some simple rules like that, I think it's getting down to the figuring out why they're there. I start most of my projects if I'm on a new client, like when they start sending workers out on this job I'm at, like it's early days, so there's only like a management team out there and they're doing a lot of planning and stuff. But when they get the workforce out, one of my talks that I try to do is I'll give them a talk about safety not being number one, right? Because we all hear it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I'll ask them, like, have you guys all heard that? And I said, it's a big fat lie. And I'm the safety guy telling you this. I say, and they look at you like, what? You like got three heads.
Yeah.
But I said, I'll ask them, why is the company doing this construction job or the expansion on this facility? And somebody will be courage enough to say, well, to make money. I said, yeah. I said, and the company you work for got the contract to make money. And I said, imagine you have this job so you can pay the rent and fill the pantry. It's okay to say that. We're here to make a living. We want to do it safely. So
Mm.
how do we do that? And
Mm.
then the mind shift. And when I'm working with new safety people, I try to get them to take that approach. There's a guy out there or an equipment operator. They might have 15 years experience running that piece of equipment. Go and lean on them.
Mm.
Ask them what you should be looking at. Right.
Mm.
And when you start asking them what you should be looking at, you're going to get some support there and some buy-in and something totally different than they're used to. Because there's still a very large number of safety cop approach to work.
Mm.
And there's a lot of language, like this company I'm doing some work for example, they in their safety program, it's I don't know how many times I hear the word compliance, 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 compliance. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Right. I think I spend a lot of time trying to make that mind shift. Compliance has its place, but if that's our focus, we're never going to get beyond mediocre. It's going to be down here before you can get up to good and really having a sustainable project from a safety side of things anyway.
Well, the compliance part is you're missing the key thing. Yes, you've got your compliance, but without the people, you can't meet your compliance. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
So engage
No.
with your people, and that will actually help achieve what the end goal is, which is to be compliant. So,
Yeah. Yeah. It's also, if you do that work on the front end and build some of that rapport, if you do have an incident where a person's injured and they know they're going to get taken care of, they're not going to get thrown to the wolves, there's that stress that is just gone. They don't have to worry about it, right?
mm, yeah.
That company I was working for years ago, I remember the owner, he was talking to one of the laborers, and I think it was the HR person interrupted them when he was talking. And he said, just a minute. And he carried on talking to this laborer, and this person interrupted again. He goes, just a second. And he carries on talking to this guy. She interrupted a third time. And he said, okay, just a minute. He says to her, listen, I'll come and talk to you in a minute, but I'm talking to one of the people that make us money, pays your paycheck. I'll be with you in a minute.
Yeah.
And we need more people in upper echelon that remember where they came from.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit challenging because a lot of upper echelon have never been on the tools, right?
No.
And we're getting to the point now where even in the safety field, there's a lot of people in safety who didn't come from the tools or the field.
Mm,
And so they have to educate themselves. And that's why I think good questioning, like go in there and ask somebody, hey, how does this work? What are the biggest risks? Do you got everything you need?
mm.
And you start learning some of the challenges they get faced with.
And the thing is that we don't know what we don't know. And if we're not, as an example, a machine operator, we don't know everything that keeps that person, that operator safe as well, because it's the machine
Yeah.
operator's job. They're the expert at that. So they can actually say, hey, these are the sorts of things that I need to help keep me safe to do my job. But if you're going in with an approach that you're the safety person and you know better, but you're actually not getting that buy-in from them, it causes quite a disconnect. So,
I think that's a big part of it and asking good questions and being a good listener, right? If you're an extrovert like me, listening is a learned behavior. It takes work. I have to do things like sit on my hands after I ask a question so I don't interrupt the person.
Yep. And keep the mouth shut. Mm-mm.
Yep. Yeah, you sit on your hands and your mouth closes. It's funny.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's having that curiosity as well, like having that curiosity to learn more and understand and, different perspectives and different bones. Because then someone might say something where it's like, oh, wow, I actually didn't even think about that.
Yeah, it's really good that way, right? I know on a job a little while ago, we had some equipment fail, and I heard this young engineer, she was solutionizing. That's what she said. We got to stop solutionizing, she said. I just kind of fell into it. There was a lot of stress and people trying to figure out. And I took the operator down and I said, can you just tell me how it's supposed to work? Take me from the front to the back. Kind of looks at me like, yeah, okay. And then that's how we figured out what went wrong. I was just trying to reduce the stress, but always remember that if I'm having to problem solve with an incident is, hey, how's this supposed to work? It also helps get away from the blame game, right? I was working for one company as they were growing, they would always ask, they as in upper management, if we had an event, an incident somewhere, they would always ask, is everybody okay? Is anyone hurt? Do you need any support? Yeah, it's interesting. As they grew and started putting more management systems in, those questions changed
Yeah.
and they started asking, who did what wrong? Wow,
Yeah.
that's interesting, right? One of the biggest things is to be mindful on the questions we ask, right?
Absolutely. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your book, if you wouldn't mind touching on that. Like you said, it was meant to be a book about safety and it ended up being about leadership. So,
Yeah,
would you like to provide a bit of an overview of your book?
sure.
And yeah,
So this is the
love it. Love the
yeah,
title, Influence.
yeah. So it's influence, and the subtitle is it's leadership and safety at the sharp end.
Yeah,
And
awesome.
I went back to the 10 leadership principles I learned in the Army, and then I took some of the biggest items I was dealing with over my career, and that's how this came to be. And
Okay.
so each chapter touches on like two or three leadership principles. It starts off with the 3 a.m. phone call. That was one of my first jobs. I was new and I got the phone call and at 3 a.m. and there was a bad accident on a work site. And so this was before the internet and before cell phones. We still had phone books. And this guy was hurt really bad. It was like the ambulance got there, scooped him up and took off. They spent no time on the ground. And I got the call to go to the office to work with our personnel people to see if we can locate this guy's emergency next of kin, which
Mm,
was his mom. We couldn't get a hold of her. We were trying different names in the region where she lived. We only had her home phone number and she was at work. And it's tragic. This poor guy, he died in the ambulance he's 23 years old.
mm.
Guess who the admitting nurse in the ER was? His mom.
Oh
His,
no.
yeah, that's how she found out. And I thought, wow, we got to do something different here. And I was only on the job like a couple of months, but
Oh
but I'll,
my
I'll never
God.
forget that. Like that's how she found out her son was killed on the job. He
Oh,
died in the ambulance on the way to the hospital emergency room where she worked,
oh
right?
no.
So I kind of take that back to the number of fatalities that we have in the workforce. Like there's 163 a.m. phone calls in Alberta every year. That's all industry. So that's construction, driving,
Mm.
you name it. But still, it's just too many. Like it's
Too
crazy.
many. Yeah.
So that's how I start the book off. And then I kind of use it as a catalyst to say we need to change some of the things we do and do some things that we've never done. So I have a chapter on what's your safety philosophy? Like, are you compliance oriented or are you way over here on the people side? And because it's a good question to ask, like, how are you going to approach things?
Yeah.
And then so that it kind of goes through that. And then I talk about challenging the status quo. And what I mean by that is not challenging the status quo to say, no, we're not doing that, but challenge things like, okay, I got all these steps I got to do. Do they all add value to the
Yeah.
worker out on the job?
Yeah.
And figure out which ones do add value and do those and do only what you need to on the other things. And
Yeah.
you're going to be all right. I kind of talk about that. And I have a chapter on, I call it LBWA. It's leadership by wandering around.
Oh yeah.
And
Love it.
and I also say it's a play on words because you don't want to be leadership by wandering around or wondering. You want to wander and talk to
Wonder.
people,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yes.
There's that, and I have a thing on stop saying safety is number one. It's okay. And I think with that though is from a safety side, we have to work with management to get them to say it's okay to not say safety is number one.
Mm.
It's going to be how we do our business. We're going to take care of our people, but and then I have a business case for safeties chapter, how to figure it out. Like it or not, we have to be able to speak the language of management.
Yeah.
Whether we like it or not. We have to be able to do it if we want to influence, which is again the title of the book. So
Yes, that's right.
I have a chapter on safety culture. I didn't want to put any buzzwords in, but that's one. Safety culture is kind of a buzzword of the day, and the gist of it is you can't have a good safety culture if you have a poor work culture.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
take the word safety out of it. Like there's safety leadership, safety culture, psychological safety. Like
Yeah.
safety is not an adjective.
Mm. Yeah.
So I have a chapter on that, and then with that is the safety messages. Like we're sending safety messages out to the field. Like what do they mean? Or is it just noise? Right? Like
Yeah.
you have to be able to ask those tough questions and be able to take the answers that you might not like. And then a chapter called When Your Boss Doesn't Lead. Because we have a
Yeah.
lot of managers, right? We have a lot
Yes.
of managers, but
Yes.
we're a little short on leadership. So it's kind
Yes.
of maybe you got to lead up, influence that way, and influence that way. It's kind of a neat role in the safety end because you touch all kinds of different parts of the business, right?
That's
Like you
it.
touch management, you touch
Yep.
supply chain, you touch HR. If you do it right, you can kind of be quite influential in some of those roles, especially out in the field
Yeah.
where you can have the most impact.
Well, it's
So,
it's being able to, if you can influence the field and being able to get them to be more aware and conscious and create that own culture, I guess you could
yeah.
say, about how to operate and how to work, then that can create a collective good to be able to influence up as well with management and leadership and things as well, because they've got a standard that they're setting for themselves to say, we're going to work to this excellent standard,
Mhm.
not a poor standard, to then be able to help create a greater influence because it's better to do it as a collective rather than in silos or by yourself.
Oh, you'll never get anywhere all by yourself.
No,
Right?
no.
No.
I love it. I love how you've structured that. And you're absolutely right, because safety, for me, like safety is very much like a cog in the wheel because you're dealing with all parts of the business and from management all the way down to the tradespeople to contractors to, authorities with the regulators and stuff as well. So you're definitely a massive cog in the wheel to be able to,
Mhm.
from a business perspective. So,
Yeah. Probably back when I wasn't so much a novice safety person. I was kind of more intermediate. So I would probably in the job of what, 10 years. And the company I was working for, we had 5 fatalities one year and all remote work sites, like way out in the boonies, and they were all driving. They were all 5 single vehicle accidents, and the men were tossed out of the vehicle. So they weren't obviously wearing their seatbelts. The company spent a ton of money with the police and stats and safety driving associations and stuff, and had all these graphs and our job in the safety department, we were supposed to take an executive or upper management person out to all these different work sites, and they were going to try and talk about these fatalities. This is where it was a turning point to get away from the noise, the bureaucratic stuff, and the safety messages, because we were going out to a remote work site where you don't really have a good office. You have a little change room where you're going to be talking to the workforce. And I think he was the vice president, was traveling with me, and they were supposed to do the presentation. So I didn't even look at it. Like I kicked myself for not looking at it. We get to the job site. He says, I hate public speaking. Can
oh,
you do the presentation? I thought, oh, great.
yeah.
I said, yes, sure, I can do it. So picture this. It's winter time. It's cold and we're on an ugly remote road. Imagine a bad meeting where it's death by PowerPoint. The slides are going on. Well, these
Yes.
guys printed these slides and we were supposed to go through them with the workforce. I'm looking at this presentation. I'm like, this is dreadful. It was like death by PowerPoint on
Yeah.
steroids. I just happened to look to my right at the crew truck. They had like a 4-door crew truck. And no one's in the truck and all the seat belts are connected. And it was a nasty road where we were driving on. And because they were staying in a remote camp from the work site and they drove that road every day. So I thought, well, this is crazy. And I threw the presentation in the garbage and I didn't know if I was going to get in trouble or not, but I clearly wasn't going to have any impact going through that presentation with this crew.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's about 15 guys there. And I said, how many of you guys, no one's going to be in trouble. I said, but how many of you wear the seatbelt in the crew truck on your way back to camp? Nobody wanted to look at me. I said, here's the
Yeah.
deal. And so I talked about the 5 guys that died because 3 of those guys were married and had kids. I said, there's 15 of you guys here, and 11 of you are married, and 9 of you have children. And that's an ugly road back to camp. It's minus 30. You got a ravine on one side and a hill on the other. If you slide into the ditch down to that ravine, you're going to die.
Mm.
So if you're okay with somebody else raising your kids and sleeping with your wife, don't put your belt on.
Yeah.
But a couple of them, they said, you're an asshole. They said, I said, hey, that may be, but that's reality because that's what's going to happen. He
Yeah.
goes, no. He said, that took some courage for you to say that, but it's true. He said, and there's 6 of us here that said we were putting our belts on because we never thought of it that way before.
Yeah.
Because you got this macho, rough and tough
Yeah.
bunch of guys. And that was probably a turning point for me about how you're going to influence things on the job.
Mm.
Because especially as a safety guy, you're just going from job to job to job. You're not often fixed on one area.
It's just putting it into a perspective that makes it relatable for them rather than putting it
Yeah,
to a compliance perspective, but make it
yeah,
relatable to them so it links back to something that they love and that they value, which is
yeah.
their family. That is the start of the ripple effect of them now putting their seatbelts on.
I think so. And then it'll just, like you say, ripple out to other people. And I wasn't sure how we were going to deal with this because one of the upper management was saying, well, we need to have a seatbelt policy. I said, well, what do you need a seatbelt policy for? I said, it's the law. If they're not going to follow the law, they're
Mm.
not going to follow a company
Oh,
policy.
yeah.
Like, how am I going to solve this? And so that was a turning point because I was, like I said, I'd been in the field or in the safety field for 7, maybe 10 years by then. And I was starting to question some of the things we do. Question it as in like, does it work or does it add value? It sounds good in the office, might not be practical out in the field. Right.
Exactly. And the thing is, what happens in an office environment is complete. And I've worked both sides. I've worked office, site-based, and fly in, fly out. And what happens in an office and where decisions are made doesn't always work with what's happening on site because it's a different beast unto itself. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah, no, I love it. So in closing, Craig, what I'd love to hear is some key points that people could take away and maybe some ideas about perhaps 3 things that they could quickly implement to help improve, if we go back to that buzzword, that safety culture, or
Yeah. Yeah.
just what's some 3 quick things that people might be able to quickly do to implement to help improve their safety culture.
I think one of the big things is to question your approach. We typically still measure safety by things gone wrong or the absence of injuries or incidents. So if we can shift away from that, and I would tell people to start looking, like find those little pockets of excellence. There's going to be some people doing things right and see how you can replicate that. So when you go out to a job site or wherever you're going in the safety field is start looking for what's going well and recognize some of that.
Mm.
Don't stick your head in the sand for things not working. Deal with it. But there's a lot of good stuff happening out there, and we need to brag a little bit more
Mm.
and find out what's going right. So
Yeah,
I think it's like doing an inspection. If you want to find dirt, you're going to find dirt. But if you
yeah,
want to find things going well, you're going to find things going well and recognize it, and then you're going to get more of it.
yeah. That's
Right?
key. Celebrate
Yeah.
the small things and recognize the
Yeah.
small things because when you can recognize it and celebrate it and show people the good things, they'll want to start doing more of it as well.
Yep. Yep. I think a skill would be, we've touched on it already, but it's kind of like advice I got from my dad when I when I left home to join the army. He said, find an old guy who's been around, like he's got some gray hair. He
Yeah,
says, and shadow him. You're going to have to listen more than you want, but that won't hurt you either. He
yeah,
said.
yeah.
So I would say find some people that have been around, whether it's safety people or tradespeople, find out what their biggest challenges are. If we can find out from the horse's mouth what some of the biggest issues are, well, then we can start taking that back because it's from their perspective, right?
And it's that
Yeah.
not making assumptions as well. Like from a leadership
Yeah.
perspective, don't make assumptions about what the people need. Actually talk to the horse's mouth and hear it firsthand.
Yeah. And then with that, I think the third thing would be to, whenever we're doing some sort of safety communication is don't think about the topic, think about the audience,
Mm.
right? Whether that's written or in a presentation form, remember who the audience is that we're trying to influence.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
Absolutely. I love it. And so quickly, so your book is available online that we'll be able to share some links as well.
Yeah, yeah, I've got it on Amazon and it's on the Kindle as well.
No,
Yeah.
it's awesome having you, and I'm super grateful to have you dialing in from Canada. Have you got any closing statements or comments that you'd like to make in rounding out the conversation to close it out?
So probably the biggest thing I can think of is take safety to the personal level. Just make it about the people, right?
Love it.
Always,
Love it.
always go back to that.
Yeah, and it is. It's that human part, isn't it? Because we're dealing with
Yeah.
people at the end of the day. So
And I think managers need to remember that too. Like if you take care of the people will take care of your business, right?
100%. And the profits just flow then. So
Ah, just roll in. Yep.
yeah, no, love it. Love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We're really
Yeah,
grateful.
thank you. That's a
And
pleasure.
yeah, it's been awesome to have you share your knowledge with us. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode today. I hope this conversation gave you something that you can take with you, whether it be a little bit of insight, inspiration, or maybe just a reminder that you're not alone. If it resonated with you, please share because we're better when we help build each other up. And remember that your experience, your story, and your journey, it all matters more than you know. Until next time, stay kind, stay connected, and never forget you are epic.